Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Daniel James, and as always, if you're new here, welcome. Today, I've got a bit of a special episode for you. I'm joined by Donna from DN College Group, and I'm also joined by students from DN College Group, both Doncaster College and North Lindsey, and this is going to be a bit of a live Q&A. This has been recorded on Friday the 10th of October, and it's actually World Mental Health Day. So I'm going to be sharing with you, the listener, and also the students, some of the stuff that I've been talking about earlier on in the week in person to the students, and then we're going to open it up to some questions. There's been some questions that have been asked before we started, and also the students have got an opportunity to ask me questions as we go along, so we're going to see where that takes us. When I went into DN College Group this week, the main thing that we're focusing on was mental health. And the stat that I started off by sharing is approximately 1 in 4 young people aged between 16 and 24 has a mental health condition. So for the students that are watching this live, just have a look around your classroom. Let's say there's 20 of you in the classroom. That means 5 of you are struggling with some form of mental health condition. But worse than that, it's harder for young people to access the support they need due to the waiting times. I was talking to somebody on Wednesday and they were talking about they had a 3-year wait list. And for me, that's just not acceptable. But worse than this stat is the fact that men, young men specifically, are 3 times more likely to die by suicide, yet 3 times less likely to talk about it. You might be sat there thinking, well, I'm a woman, what's that got to do with me? Well, you may have a dad, an uncle, a brother, a boyfriend. So although you may not be a male, this still does affect you. And although we're specifically talking about men here, mental health affects everybody, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, young, old. It does not discriminate. And just because you're not struggling now, that doesn't mean that you might not struggle in the future. And suicide is now the leading cause of death for people between the age of 20 and 34. Not accidents, not illness, suicide. So that means that more young people are dying from struggling in silence than from any other cause. But I believe with the right support and understanding that these deaths are preventable. This is why I do the podcast. So whether you're a student watching this now live or whether you're a listener watching this when it gets released, this is why I do this. The reason why I do the podcast, the reason why I set the podcast up, the reason why I'm going to be releasing this book is because I believe once we understand some of these things, that these deaths are preventable. I believe the reason why so many people are struggling is because they feel out of control. And actually with some basic frameworks and understanding, it can give them the control to just hold the ship steady while support then comes. And I'm going to invite Donna into this conversation. Donna, obviously you've worked with young people for ages.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've noticed a spike in over the last couple of years?
Definitely. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's just increased and increased. And I think there's a lot more awareness around it these days. There isn't the services there. And the thing is, this is real people, real lives with real issues. And maybe, friends, groups of friends, or maybe even ourselves. And I think by talking about it more and encouraging, podcasts like this, it gets young people to actually, because everything's online, social media, it gets people more engaged. And it's that engagement that we really want to bring out of our students.
Absolutely. And again, when it comes to key thing Donna said there is about talking. One of the key things I mentioned here is that the biggest lie we believe in mental health is that I shouldn't bother people with my problems. And this is why we struggle in silence, because we just sit there and it gets worse and worse and worse. And something I mentioned when I was on campus earlier on in the week is it's better to have an awkward conversation than to lose a mate. I'll say it again. It's better to have an awkward conversation than to lose a mate. People are sat there struggling in silence, but you can see when something's off. You can see if that friend of yours that's normally all bubbly is now suddenly withdrawn. Or that friend that always wants to do something now suddenly doesn't. We can sense that something's off, yet oftentimes we don't say something, especially as guys. This also goes for the women as well. But it takes real courage to actually just have that potentially uncomfortable conversation. Because worst case scenario, it is an uncomfortable conversation because actually they're fine. But best case scenario, you have that conversation and you may have just saved that person's life. And that for me is what it's all about, just having those conversations, just talking and not sitting there thinking that you're bothering people. Because people want to help. There's people out there. And maybe you don't feel comfortable talking to your close group of friends. Okay. But especially if you're a student, there is people at college that you can talk to. Donna being one of them, there's also wellbeing support. There are people that are out there that want to listen and can help. So again, it's just having that conversation, even if it is a little bit awkward and a little bit uncomfortable. Donna, can you remember when, again, you were at any point in your life struggling and that having the courage to either speak to somebody or having the courage to direct somebody to talk? Have you ever had that conversation before with anybody?
Whoa! Yeah, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's happened, multiple times because a motto I always go with that in order to, look after others, you need to look after yourself. And it's about ensuring that the support is there, when somebody is wanting to, have those conversations. And it's also support students and know who they can go to, but make sure that they actually go to that person, because it's very, very difficult, especially as a staff member. A student out of nowhere would come and find, you are that face, you are that person that they just open up to. It can be anybody at any given time, just opens up. But it's making sure that you have all your ducks in a row to actually know where to go and get that support. And as staff members, that's really important for us as well. I'll tell you what's really interesting, and something that we found with your talks though, Daniel, is the amount of males that stay behind and talk to you. It's something that we haven't really seen in the past. And I think it's because you are this man on stage who has struggled himself. You're very open about your past, the difficulties that you've had. And I think by seeing you on that stage, young men in that audience are going, actually, I connect with them. I get this. I understand this. This is actually, I'm feeling that way. Or I have a mate that's going through that. Is it something you see all the time?
Not all the time, but again, I've gone and done talks in some very male-dominated industries. I've done a big talk at what's it called? Nottingham City Council Home Improvement Services. So again, the builders, the plumbers, the engineers that go into the council houses for Nottingham City Council and do the fixing. And I've had conversation with fully grown men about this stuff. They've never had the courage to talk about some of this stuff. And for me, it all comes down to role models. And maybe listening to this, again, whether you're a student or listening to this episode, you may not have had a good role model, whether it's a male or a female in your life, and you somehow think that disqualifies you from having some sort of success. But actually, if you haven't had a good role model, that's then giving you a blueprint on what not to do. So actually, you can look at him and be like, well, actually, they were never there for me. They always told me to shut up. They didn't have any sort of empathy. They never gave me a hug. All these things you now know, actually, that's what not to do. And for me, again, the fact of I used to be a bodybuilder, the fact that I played football at a very high level, all of these things, we think that to be a man and be masculine, we have to look a certain way. We have to have tattoos. We have to be strong, big, and stoic. But for me, that doesn't necessarily define what masculinity is. For me, it's being comfortable in that uncomfortableness. And actually, when you are struggling, just to say, do you know what? I'm not okay here. Because the biggest thing that you can do is share that vulnerability that you are struggling, because there's so many people around you that are struggling and are afraid to open up. So if you can be the one that does start that conversation, you could be the one that actually saves multiple people's lives because they see you as that beacon of hope. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out, but just that first step of, do you know what? I'm really not okay. And then someone else will be like, oh, actually, yeah, me too. So prime example, when I said I was talking at this Nottingham City Home Improvements, there was one gentleman there, he must have been 40 years old, and he was talking about how his dad had been very physically abusive to him because his dad had been a miner. And that's just kind of how they were brought up. And this guy was petrified about passing this on to his son. He's like, I just want to be a good role model. I don't know what to do. And before I could open my mouth, another guy from the other side of the room jumped in and started to talk to this guy. And then somebody else jumped in. And I just sat back. And these men, these big burly men, were having a conversation discussing their mental health because one guy had the courage to open up and share. So whatever you believe about mental health, just realize that what you believe about it is completely false. Actually, opening up and saying that you're struggling, that's a sign of strength. Because if you are struggling with your mental health, one of the hardest things you can ever overcome is this. And that's real strength. To overcome this, nobody can hurt you like you hurt yourself. So when you actually unpick some of the negativities, some of the horrible things you're saying to yourself, that's true strength. That takes real courage. That's not weakness. Because actually you can then step into that role and you can guide other people. You can be that leader. And it's not about having a big stature. It's not about having tattoos. It's not about having a beard. It's none of that stuff that people perceive as masculine. It's not that. It's actually having the courage to be like, hey, I hear you. I've been through it. Let me help. And if you look at anyone in your life that you look up to, they're probably in some way, shape or form, the person that's helped you overcome some stuff. And you could be that person for somebody in your life too. So I know that's a bit of a tangent there, Donna, from what you said, but I thought it was important to mention that. And one of the biggest things, the question I got on Wednesday, actually, when I was at Doncaster College, was someone asked me how I came out of my depression. And it was simply someone asking me if I was okay. And I didn't realize how bad I was mentally. All I knew is that I isolated myself. I knew that I was in thousands of pounds worth of debt. I was about to move back home with my parents. I'd lost my business. So I decided to go work at a pub that I'd worked at when I was 18. So this time I was 28, working back at a job that I'd worked when I was 18. And there was a woman there in her 40s and she looked straight at me as soon as I walked in and she went, "You are not okay." I was like, "What on earth are you on about? Like, you don't know me." And she went, "I need a lift home. Give me a lift home later. You can tell me all about it." And I was thinking, what are you on about? Like, you don't know me. Anyway, she gets in my car and she goes, "Go on then, tell me." And I just went, boom. And the release to actually just talk about some of the stuff that I'd gone through, that is the single moment that actually saved my life. Because I genuinely had no idea how bad I was until I'd actually started talking about it. It was a 30-minute drive and I did not stop talking the entire time. And it's just this weight had been lifted because I'd been holding it in. And I didn't realize that I needed to let this out. And some of you will be exactly the same, not just talking to the men in the room, the women as well. Some of you are so desperate to just share something and you don't know what to do. Find somebody. And it may not be your best mate, because we all got that best mate that actually we don't trust with some of our secrets because we know they're going to talk a bit. That might not be the person you go to. You might be that kind of friend that you don't talk to every now and again, but they get it. Maybe they've been through something themselves. That's the person to talk to. You want to make sure that you're sharing this with the right kind of person. If you don't have someone, like I said, then reach out to people at college because they can be that safe space for you and hold that space for you to just talk. Because as soon as you talk and put it out there, that's then when change actually starts. Sorry, Donna, I went off on a tangent again.
It's okay. No, something that I always find, really interesting, we are very quick to make that appointment at the doctors, for feeling unwell. Whether it be like me with my asthma or, it could be, you're under the weather. There could be all sorts of reasons why you're making an appointment for your physical health. But when it comes to your mental health, it's the same thing, but we don't see it that way. Why do you think that happens?
I've got no idea, but this ties into the slide that I spoke about when I was there, that using professional help, it's not failure. Like, you wouldn't fix a broken leg by yourself. And it's exactly the same with your mental health. But somehow I think we've got this narrative that is somehow a weakness. And somehow we think we can fix it ourselves. And a lot of us, potentially, if we haven't had a good, strong upbringing, maybe we've had to step up and basically be our own advocate. We've had to look after ourselves. And we've got this whole thing of, I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody. If you look up for somebody, whether it's a sports athlete, or a musician, nobody got to where they were in life by themselves. Nobody. And again, maybe you're looking at a YouTuber that you like or whatever. And like, oh yeah, but they just sit by a camera, they've done it themselves. No, they haven't. I promise you they haven't. There's no way they figured it all out by themselves. They'd have looked at other videos, got help from the people, they'd have spoke to people. Nobody does anything by themselves. It's impossible. Any successful business person that you know, once again, even if they're working for themselves in their own business, they're a one-man band, I promise you they've had help. But we've got this thing where we have to somehow battle through and keep pushing on by ourselves. That's not how it works. And for me, it's just realizing that there's professionals out there, there are people out there that can help you if you're struggling. And again, yes, we're talking about mental health, but I'm talking about anything. Whether it's career, relationship-wise, whatever it is, finances, you do not have to do it alone. And especially with all the resources that are out there, whether it is a book, a podcast, whether it's a YouTube video, there is resources out there that are free, so you can't use not having money as an excuse. And yes, there may be long wait times for some of the NHS support, but there is other support out there which is free and is easily accessible. And especially if you're a young person, there's a lot of charities out there as well that can help you. So you don't have to sit in silence. If you're unsure about any of that stuff, again, reach out to the people at DN College, whether it's Donna or any member of her team, or even just your tutor. They can put you in the right direction. But Don, do we have any other questions that the people? Because again, I know we had some people ask us questions before. Is there any questions?
One of them was really interesting. It was, if you could give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, great question. If I could my 17-year-old, I'm trying to think what I was doing at 17. Is 17 college age?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. 17. So what was I doing at college? I was a loser at college. I'll make that very, very clear. I was not a cool kid at college at all. I'm not saying I'm cool now, by the way, but I definitely was not at college. The best bit of advice I could give myself at 17-year-old, if I could right now teleport back and speak to myself personally, I would say to stop being so afraid. I think the reason why I struggled so much at college, at school, and for most of my life was I was afraid. I was afraid of other people's opinions. I was afraid of what other people would think of me. And actually, if I'm being completely honest, I was afraid of what girls would think of me. I was afraid that actually I'll do something, I look silly, and I wanted to impress, as guys do. And I think I go back and tell myself that you don't have to be afraid, because fear holds us back in so many ways. And still as adults, fear holds us back. But I spoke about this earlier on today. Oftentimes, it's not fear of failure that scares us. It's fear of being successful. We're actually afraid of our own success. And if anyone wants a movie recommendation, Coach Carter is a movie that I strongly recommend. It's absolutely fantastic. There's a really famous quote in there. And I can't remember the original person that said the quote, but the coach keeps calling out a player. He's like, what's your deepest fear? What's your deepest fear? What are you afraid of? And he just says, this quote says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that most frightens us. It is our light and not our darkness that most frightens us. A lot of us are so afraid of being seen that we just play small. But actually, when we're playing small, it doesn't serve other people. And actually, when you step into being that best version of yourself, and when you stop being afraid, you actually give people around you permission to try harder as well, because they see your courage and they lead from your example. So that's what I'd say to my 17-year-old self. Just don't be so afraid, because we catastrophize everything. And again, I'm 36 years old. I still feel young. So some of you guys now, you're thinking, I'm getting on, I'm 20 years old, I'm 18. No, I promise you, your life genuinely hasn't properly started yet. And some of the issues that you're worrying about right now, some of the things that you're afraid of right now, I promise you, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, you won't even remember what you were afraid of. You won't even remember that worry, that doubt. So if you've got something you want to do, if there's something that's stopping and holding you back, just take that action. No matter how imperfect it is, just take that action towards that life that you want, and allow yourself to step into that version of you that you know is there. Because I don't know if, again, the students are listening to this, I had this thing for me where I knew I was destined for something good. I thought it was to be a professional footballer. I genuinely thought that was my calling. But it wasn't for me. This is my calling, helping people. But I fully believe that all of us have got that thing, and we believe we're meant for something great, but we just play small. So for me, any advice I can give myself, and I pass on to anybody else, is don't let fear hold you back. Don't let fear hold you back. That was a great question, Don. I don't know who asked that. That was a great question.
That actually leads me on to another question that came in. So it's about how do you stay motivated when things get tough for you, as a successful coach and author?
So I had a conversation. So a student asked me this in person yesterday as well, when I was at North Lindsay. I don't stay motivated. Most people aren't motivated all the time. And this is where there's a bit of a lie about motivation. So if I just pop this on here. So motivation isn't something we're meant to have all the time. So motivation, it comes and it goes. But we think when we're here that, that's it, it's done now. I'm not motivated. No. Motivation comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. That's what motivation does. But the thing that we need to look out for is discipline. So discipline is what we want to cultivate. So motivation will get you started, but then it's discipline that keeps you going. So on Tuesday this week, I had a big talk at a university. I then had a football game. I then travelled an hour to go to Doncaster College. I was there all day, came back, spoke on the radio, drove an hour and a half to North Lindsay. And was I motivated on Thursday morning to drive an hour and a half to North Lindsay? No, I was not motivated at all. I wanted to stay in bed. I was tired. I wasn't motivated, but I was disciplined. Discipline is doing the things you know you need to do when you don't feel like doing them. For me, I love what I do. I genuinely believe I'm here to help people, whether it's students, whether it's adults. I believe I'm here. But if I'd listened to that feeling of, I'm tired today, which is what so many of us do, we negotiate with ourselves. We let our feelings and emotions dictate the actions that we take or don't take. And that's what holds us back. Not just students, but adults. The reason why a lot of adults don't get what they want in life is because they negotiate with themselves. They know what they want. They know the standard, but they negotiate based on how they're feeling. Nobody is motivated all the time. I don't care who you follow on social media. I don't care. I don't care how much money they have. I don't care how successful they appear. Nobody is motivated all the time because motivation is not something that can stay there permanently. It's not how it works. It comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. But when you're disciplined, that disciplined action, when you don't feel motivated, gives you motivation. So as soon as I was at North Lindsay yesterday, as soon as I stepped into the auditorium, bam, I'm motivated. I was loving it because I took the action despite how I was feeling. And some of you have got big dreams, big goals, and you're just like, I really don't have any motivation. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Discipline is not something that you are born with or without. Everyone has discipline, but discipline is a skill. It's a skill meaning that you can develop it. Just like playing golf. You may suck at golf, but if you practice it, you will get better. Same with discipline. You may struggle with discipline, but if you practice discipline by doing things you know you need to do, when you don't feel like doing it, you will become more disciplined. And that is when your life completely changes. It's one of the biggest things that I wish more people knew. The motivation is we see it all the time on playlists, motivational playlists, motivation that. Motivation is only going to get you so far, but it's discipline that will carry you through to the finish. That's another great question, Donna. Great question.
And I think that also links in with being your own, best friend, doesn't it? That whole looking after yourself. You've got to put yourself first, in order to, drive forward and, support others as well.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's So someone yesterday was saying to me that someone in their family was struggling. And they said, what can I do to help support this person? I said, the best thing that you can do is to support yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you're on an airplane, they say when the oxygen mask comes down, put your mask on first, then help other people. And you're like, no, but help other people. If you're passed out on the floor, you can't help anybody. So the best thing that you can do to help support people around you, and again, they may be struggling with their mental health, they may not be. Your friends may be struggling, they may not be. But to support the people around you, you have to look after yourself. And people say that it's selfish. It's not selfish. It's selfless. Because you're looking after yourself to serve other people. So yes, in the moment it may appear selfish, but it's not. The intention behind it is to help serve other people. Because if you don't have that energy, what are you going to do? And it's also the analogy that I use when it comes to the energy is a cup. So if you've got a cup That's a terrible cup. Let's draw a better cup. If you have a cup and you're trying to fill it with water, but the water's down here, you've got nothing extra. And you can keep pouring in as much water as you want, but if there's loads of cracks in the cup, your water is going to keep pouring out. So it's asking yourself, okay, well, where are these cracks? Where is your energy going? Because it may be social media that's draining you. It may be the fact that your friends are draining you. Maybe you're not sleeping properly. Maybe your diet's horrendous. Maybe you're causing yourself unnecessary stress because you're not doing your homework. And it's just draining your energy, draining your energy, draining your energy. So the first thing that you've got to do to take care of yourself is look where your energy is being drained. If you have an iPhone, I guarantee you that your battery dies quicker if you've got loads of apps loaded up in the background. As soon as you close the apps, you save energy, your battery lasts longer. It's the same with you. You can't pour from an empty cup. And the way that you get this cup sorted is to just get rid of all of these cracks so that when you are starting to pour more water in, it actually comes up, and then it overflows. And when it overflows, this is the extra stuff that you can give to other people. But you can't do that if you don't realize where your energy is going. So you've got to look after yourself. You've got to figure out what is it that you like, what is it that you don't like, what is it that drains your energy, what is it that fills your energy. And make sure you put your energy into the right people. Because some people are just take. Yeah. And sometimes that's because they're struggling. But they're not going to be struggling all the time. So it's making sure that in that relationship that they're giving some as well. That's another great question, Don. I can't remember what the question was, but hopefully that answered it about looking after yourself.
It did, definitely. And it's an analogy that I always use, in regards to you're in the driving seat of your own life. You're the driver. You're the one that chooses directions. And yes, there is, those outside influences, but it is, and it's about looking after yourself and putting yourself first. And I always use the analogy that, we have this inner bully going on, or we need to find more our inner cheerleader and make our inner cheerleader, a lot bigger than that inner bully that we tend to, cause that tends to beat us up from inside out.
There's a great thing there we said about the car analogy. So I'm going to piggyback off that. So we should be the driver of our own car and our own life. But the problem is, a lot of the time, we let our thoughts or our emotions drive the car. So us, the best version of us, and I spoke about this earlier on, you are the sky. The best version of you, I'm going to roll my sleeves up because I want to use this. I need to have my tattoo as the best arm. So there is you, the best version of you, the you that you know is in there, that version of you, that amazing version, that's there. You then have your thoughts, and these thoughts may be quite negative. And oftentimes when we're struggling, we get confused, and we think that we are our thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one having the thoughts. So what we need to do is just create that space between you and the thoughts and just observe them. Just have that space. So just like you are the sky, the big blue thing. Now, obviously in the UK, we don't see the sky very often, but it's always there. And a lot of the times, the sky is covered by dark grey clouds. And that can be negative thoughts. That can be negative feelings and negative emotions. But again, we think that we are this cloud. We're not. We are the sky. And just like clouds, these negative thoughts, these negative feelings, these negative emotions, they will pass. The problem is we don't ever sit there to get curious about it. We try and push it away. And we say, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. And the more you say you don't want to think about something, what are you actually giving attention to? If I say, don't think of an elephant, don't think of an elephant, don't think of an elephant, stop thinking of an elephant, stop thinking of an elephant, you're going to start to think about an elephant because you're giving the elephant your attention. It's the same with these thoughts and these feelings. You have to let them pass. And it reminds me of a story of a buffalo and the cows. So when a thunderstorm comes, cows try and outrun the storm. The cows can't outrun the storm. So they get exhausted, they get emotionally drained, and it lasts for ages because they try and outrun it, they can't, they get tired, they get stuck in it, and it's just awful. Buffaloes, on the other hand, when they see the storm, they turn and they run headfirst into it. It's intense for the first few minutes, and then they get through the other side and they're calm and they're relaxed. That's the same with us, with these feelings and emotions and these negative thoughts that we're having. We just need to get a little bit inquisitive about them. We don't need to ignore them. We need to That's interesting. Where's that come from? That's interesting. That's not relevant right now. And especially when it comes to your feelings and emotions, your emotions are data. They're trying to tell you something. Let's go back to the car analogy. If you're driving a car, and again, I know some of you are going to be learning to drive, but on that dashboard, lots of lights are going to pop up. Some of them you can ignore, but when the engine light pops up, if you ignore that, there's a good chance the engine might blow up. So you have to figure out, what's this engine sign trying to tell me? There's something wrong with my car. What is it? Very similar to your emotions. Your emotions are trying to tell you something. You want to listen. Rather than try and push them away, ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Where has this come from? Start to get inquisitive, because going back to Donna's question from earlier, this is then how you become your own best friend. You start to figure yourself out. You start to know your patterns. You start to know what you like. You start to know what triggers you. You start to know how you respond to certain people, certain situations. Because no one knows you better than you know yourself. But it just starts with giving yourself that gap and that space. Because that first initial intrusive thought that you have, or that gut feeling that you have, that anger, you may not be able to do something about that initial thing that pops up, but you can choose how you respond after you notice it. And that's the difference. That's when you separate, and that best version of you that's observing chooses to act or respond differently. And that's where the choice comes in. You don't have to keep doing the same things you've done over and over and over again. It just takes awareness, and it takes you starting to get to know yourself. But remember, no matter how dark the clouds get, the sky is always there. That best version of you is always there. So no matter how dark it is right now for you, some of you listening, the sky, that best version of you, is always there, and the clouds do pass. So I just wanted to jump on that car analogy there, Donna, because it's a great thing I use. I also say to people, they spend a lot of their life looking in the rearview mirror. And you can't drive your car forward if you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror. So get back hold of the steering wheel, get your emotions and your thoughts into the back seat where they belong so you can observe them. Stop staring at the rearview mirror and start to focus on where you actually want to drive your life and car forward.
Definitely. I just want to say to those that are listening, if anyone has got any questions, please pop them in the chat, and I'll put the questions to Danielle. You know, it's something that I use with students all the time about, the inner bully, and, find your inner cheerleader. You're in the driving seat. You've got paths, which path are you going to choose? Because you are in control of yourself, and I think a lot of young people forget about that because they're so bogged down with, college is an amazing place, it's fun, it's vibrant, but there's deadlines coming in, there's exams taking place, there's lots of factor data being inputted when you are, a student. And it's how they can navigate that and regulate those emotions as they're going through this time in their life.
So something that you picked on there, if I don't touch on this, Donna, remind me to go back to how to regulate. But something that you mentioned, I just wanted to touch on there, is about choices and different paths. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier on. And it's realizing that if you've been walking down the same path, when you choose a different path, there's always going to be a bit of friction when you initially start. And when we get that initial friction and tension, we think that we've made the wrong choice. So we go back to the default. But actually, for me, that friction is the universe, or whatever you believe, saying to you, how badly do you want that thing that you said you want? So I use me as an example. Some of you may know I used to play football at a high level. I stopped playing at 22 years old. I came back out of retirement at 30, played a decent standard for a year, did my rotator cuff, retired again. I'm 36, and this summer I came out of retirement to start playing again. Pre-season was very, very difficult, very, very hard. But I saw that as the universe saying, how bad do you want this? So what I say with this is, disruption always follows intention. So what I mean by that is that you are here right now in your life, and this is your comfort zone. You're on your little comfort zone hill. You then have the life that you want to have, the change that you want to make. So you set that intention of, I'm going to change, I want to do this thing, whatever that is going to be. And we think it's going to be a straight line to there. Not how it works. As soon as you make the intention of, I'm going to do something different, this is where disruption kicks in. So you actually go down into this little pit of disruption. And this is where most people give in because they think they've made the wrong decision. If you start going to the gym, the intention is, I want to get fit, I want to get healthy. As soon as you get to the gym, you do a workout, your muscles are sore. Especially if you've done legs, you might be able to walk for a few days. That's the disruption. Maybe you want to move away from your current friendship group to actually hang around with people that are more like you and more in alignment with your goals. Okay, well, there's going to be a disruption there. The old friends may make fun of you. They may make it difficult for you. Disruption always follows intention. When you set an intention, there's going to be a path or a period that is a bit disruptive. That does not mean you are on the wrong path. Most of the time, it means you are on the right path, and it's a test to see how badly you want that thing that you said you wanted. And over time, what happens is you step out, you learn and you grow, and then you get to your new destination. But it's realizing, look how steep this is. It's hard. It's not an easy thing. But it's realizing that it's not a straight path like you think it's going to be. Actually, the first thing is it's down. And this is where most people struggle. That's where most people give up and they climb straight back to their comfort zone and they never try again. Disruption always follows intention. So when you feel that friction, when you feel that discomfort, that actually means you might be on the right path. So keep pushing through so that you can get to wherever it is that you want to get to right up here. And then, Don, what was the second part of that question? I went off on tangent again, but what was the question that was asked about emotions?
Sorry?
Was it emotions, the question? How do you manage it?
Yeah, how to regulate your emotions, especially at this age.
Yeah. So anger's a big one, especially for all the men. Anger is such a powerful, also very destructive emotion. And for me, it's just giving yourself that space between noticing that emotion. So when someone says or does something to you, and straight away you feel that anger, that rage, which, again, I know it very well. I used to feel it all the time. And you want to lash out, you want to swear, punch something, throw something, kick something. Pause. In that moment that you feel it, pause. And ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? Why am I doing this? And then ask yourself, how would I choose to act or respond? Because a lot of the times, someone does something to us, we then retaliate and we get told off. Whereas actually, if something happens to us, we can pause, gain control of our emotions. That person will then get in trouble and we're then okay because we haven't responded. And there's an amazing thing about anger. Jordan Peterson said it. I can't remember the exact quote, but he talks about how a lot of people say that they are these big, strong warriors and these guys pretend to be macho and all this. Being constantly angry doesn't show strength. Being constantly angry actually shows immense weakness because it shows you haven't got the strength to control your emotions. Real strength is having that anger within you, but you being able to control it and letting it out when it's appropriate, not just letting it explode like a volcano. That's not strength. And this is where the strength comes into it. You have to sit with yourself and figure out, why is this happening? What does it mean? Again, anger is an emotion. What are you angry about? Because a lot of the time, you're not angry about the thing you're about to lash out at. You're angry about something else that you haven't processed. Maybe you're angry about your parents or something to do with your childhood and you're taking it out on somebody else. Don't bleed on people that didn't cut you. Don't take it out on the wrong person. Real strength is figuring out those feelings and emotions, no matter how uncomfortable they are, and also figuring out some of the stuff that's going on in here. Because sometimes it can get a very, very dark place in here. And it takes real strength to unpick that, but you don't have to go through it alone. As we mentioned earlier on, if you broke your leg, you'd go and find a professional. You go to the doctors. You go to the hospital. Same with your mental health. You don't have to figure this stuff out by yourself. There's people out there that are trained that can help you navigate it. But that is real strength. Because that takes courage to actually sit with yourself, because it can be a dark place. I hope that answers that question again, Donna.
Thank you for that. So we're drawing to a close. There is one final question, but I don't think there is time to answer it, so I'll pop it over to you in an email, Daniel. So just to say, thank you everyone for attending today. If you are struggling, please, you're not on your own. There is people here to talk to, or your friends, or your classmates, the Wellbeing Centre, or Safeguarding. There is always someone to talk to. Please just don't struggle on your own, and just check on your mates. How are you doing? Do you want to go for a walk? Let's have that chat. Open that door is about healing, that person. It's about offering that support for them to heal. I want to make sure that our colleges are a safe space, a place where, mental health is not just acknowledged, we actually prioritise it, and we're all here to support one another.
Can I just say, Donna, on top of that question, I can answer that because you gave me time to think about it.
Okay.
The book, I believe, will be called The Great Escape. Getting out of the prison of my own mind. That is a fantastic question. Whoever asked that, it's a great question. So the question was, if your best friend wrote a book about you, what would it be called? The Great Escape.
Perfect, then. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. So thank you everyone for listening, and hope you have a great weekend.